The Crotchety Old Men podcast is not a registered investment, legal, or tax advisor or a broker-dealer. All investment financial opinions expressed by or on the Crotchety Old Men podcast are from the personal research and experience of the owner of the site and are intended as educational material. Although best efforts are made to ensure that all information is accurate and up to date, occasionally unintended errors and misprints may occur. Before you invest or make any investment-based decisions, consider your own personal circumstances. You should do your own research and seek advice from a financial professional.
Good day, and what a wonderful day it is. Another morning with the Crotchety Old Men podcast. I'm your host, Gary Smith. I should say co-host because I'm not here by myself. And my co-host in crime, my partner, George Crumley. Top of the day to you, George.
Same to you, Smitty. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm doing so fine, man. And if I had wings, George, I'd take off and fly today.
The way things are going on in the world today, Gary, sometimes you want to fly away.
That's true. Well, I'll tell you, in speaking of things and how they're going today, let's face it, we live in an unequal American economy. And so today we want to talk about, this American dream. Yeah, is it a dream or is it a myth or is it reality, George? What are your thoughts about it?
Well, Gary, I think it's an excellent topic. I was looking at the news. I look at the national news, and one of the stories they talked about was the American dream. So it's a term that's thrown around all the time. And, when we look at it, the American dream. So, I kind of looked at it and said, okay, what is the American dream? So people know what we're talking about. So the American dream is defined as the ideal, not idea, but the ideal by which equality of opportunity is available to any American, allowing the highest aspirations and goals to be achieved. And that in itself, says something because equality and opportunity available to any American, okay? We look at that and we look at obviously past history, and we know that that hasn't been the case, especially for us, people of color, Native Americans. And so it's something that we really want to talk about and try to examine as far as what's really going on with the American dream. So how do you put yourself in a position, where you can live comfortably and also to live in a position where, you can retire comfortably. So that's kind of what we want to talk about today, Smitty.
Well, I tell you, George, that's a lot, and we're going to get it in too. Equality and opportunity. Man, those are two powerful words. Hopefully, we can put those on our list here because we definitely want our listeners to tune in on that, zone in on equality and opportunity. I was looking at some statistics today on the U.S. Census Bureau and was talking about the median income. And so in order for us to prepare and even be ready or get ready or participate in this American economy with the situation, the way it's already set up, you look at the median income for the United States is $69,000. Let's just call it $70,000. And we all hear a lot about affordable housing, things of that nature. And that's based upon that median income in most cities across the country. Well, if the AMI, I forget exactly for the American median income, I think that's what it stands for. They usually have this formula where you take maybe anywhere from 60, 70, 80% of that number. And if you took 80% of $70,000, that means that's about $56,000. And what that really means is that affordable housing, if you or a family make $56,000, then you can afford to live in that particular area. But when you look at African Americans, the majority of African Americans work either in the service industry or for the government. And those salaries range anywhere from $15 to $25, maybe $30 an hour. I'm not going to bore you with the math, but it's not $56,000. So we have to really open up, and if we're going to prepare, it's not how much money you make, and that's where I'm going with this. It's not how much money you make, but it's what you do with it, how much money you keep. And I think, George, to that end, that can at least position us to at least engage in the economic economy that exists here in America with all this inequalities and lack of opportunity.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Smitty. In fact, it's one of the stats I was looking at. It says 37% of people in the United States believe that the American dream does not exist anymore, and because of some of the things that you just mentioned. But surprisingly, research suggests also that a whopping 1.4 million startups were brought on between last year and this year. So what that tells you is that people are looking at alternative ways to get to the American dream, because as we know, business is a way to escalate your income, to put a different twist on it and make a little bit more money. One of the things that we've always talked about is, just working every day, 9 to 5 is not going to get you the American dream. So here again, those startup to cushion your income is what's going to get you there, because not only does it give you the additional income, but it also gives you the tax benefits of being able to write off a lot of things. If it's a home business, you can write off a portion of your home, your internet, some of your bills that are also, you can splice them based on the square footage. And here again, these are things that you have to talk to a tax attorney about. But, just from a personal experience and, in my opinion, these are the things that you can write off, with a business. And we've always encouraged you to not only just work 9 to 5, but also start up a business so that you can uh, insulate yourself from some of the taxes. Because as we know, 64% of what you make either goes to taxes or interest.
Absolutely. And George, when you talk about 1.4 million startups, I can't help but sit here and wonder how many of those startups included blacks or African American people who are starting businesses. Because what's been shown is that 81% of entrepreneurs that were surveyed agree that the government incentives favor established businesses over new businesses. And that right there can be somewhat of a high barrier, particularly for most black businessmen and women, because number one, they start off with far less capital, because unless you have resources to capitalize your business, you're not going to get a lot of those incentives. Unless you got that family support, it's really hard to leave a job and try to start a business, because you need benefits. And if you got a family, you got all these other things go on. And as we both know, the uncertainty of starting a business has its ups and downs the first year or 2 or 3 until you get really going and stuff. And then last but not least, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get a loan from a bank to help you give that cash infusion. So out of that 1.4 million, I don't know the number, how many it is that were African Americans or what have you, but I do know this. Whatever that number is, it needs to be put on steroids in order for us to participate in this economy. Okay, because too many of us, our talents, our skills, and our knowledge and our abilities and things of that nature is being, I won't say squandered, but it's definitely being utilized by other companies. And so when we lose those resources, we don't have the resources or the necessary resources to build our own. And to your point, we got to start teaching our kids. We must make our youth of today entrepreneurs of tomorrow. And it starts with us. Parents, we may have missed it, whatever, because things that our parents did or did not do got us to where we are. We learn by mistakes or what have you. Then we learn by reading and educating ourselves. But now that we set somewhat of a foundation, George, I'm thinking that, hey, if the parents don't take advantages, I'm hoping that they'll pass this on to the younger people so that they can position themselves to be players in this this American economy that, like you said early on, has all the inequalities and the lack of opportunities to resources that we're faced with.
Yeah, yeah. Though you hit the nail on the head, Smitty. It's you know the American dream. You talked about some of the obstacles, and those are what prevents us from getting there: fear, money,
Mhm.
education, training, family changes in size, disability, race, and gender. I mean, these are the kind of things that affect us and prevent us from getting the American dream as we've kind of described it. But you when you talk about the youth, I mean, that's where it starts. And we're
Yes.
going to take this conversation to where it starts to all the way to retirement. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and he was telling me how his son had obtained about $250 helping him in his business. And I
Mhm.
asked him, I said, "So what are you going to do with that?" And I think even in the conversation, he mentioned something about putting it in the bank. And I said, well, I reminded him that every time you put money in the bank turns over your money 10 times. So how
Right.
do you put yourself in a position where you're, making 10 times that amount on your money? And obviously at that age, 13, 14 years old, the stock market is what comes into mind. Okay. Yeah. A lot of the new agencies other than your Fidelities and those like that, your was it Redfin? I think that's the name
Redfin.
of it. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Robinhood. I think that's it. Robinhood.
Oh,
They
okay.
don't have custodial accounts, so you have to open them for your kids. But I mean, it's a great educational tool. It's to put money in the market, for your kids, to let them start to do the research, to have them invest in companies that they utilize. If they like games, if they like certain types of food or whatever it is, but let them choose what to invest in, and at that early age, because it's a proven record over time that if you put money in the market, that it will go up. Yeah, we all see where it goes down, and it's always, they talk about, the doom and gloom of the down market and whatnot. But if you look at history back to the 20s, the market has always gone down, but what we are still sure of, that it's always going to go up. So, that's where we want to start. Like I've talked about on other podcasts, my grandson, we started him a custodial account where he's able to invest in, and I think some of the stocks he's invested in are like Apple, because he's real big with iPhone and things like that. So, they can watch it go up and down, and they can do research. And it's like I said, it's an educational process. But this is where it starts, and this is something different than how we were raised. Because I know when I was 12, 13 years old, I wasn't investing in the market. But the way things are now, it's a thing that we have to take advantage of, and this is where we want to start to build this wealth and build the knowledge for our children, so that they understand, how this world works.
You're really right in the vein there, George, and in the advice and recommendations there. As I was thinking here, along with that, is that I don't know whether I read it somewhere or it came to me, but there are three things that we should really focus in on buying for our kids other than BS. And that would be a building, something that's going to appreciate over time, or it can be sold, it can be used as collateral, or it can be rented out. Number two is a business, just like we talked about earlier. You can employ people, you can make it, manufacture or do services and whatever. It's going to generate income. Or bonds. Okay, bonds is another way of investing in terms of long-term sustainability, a long-term gain, because bonds have a maturity date, so it has something of certainty to them. And depending upon what's backing, whether it's a corporate bond or a government bond, you have a certain degree of certainty. And so I look at it as the three B's: buy a building, a business, or bonds. In addition to what you're saying, because when you're younger, diversification is key. Okay. You don't know which one is going to profit the most, so you have a diversified, well balanced portfolio that will allow you to do that thing. And in some of our earlier episodes, where we talked about obviously the foundation of life insurance, I think we talked about that very thoroughly in one of our episodes about how using life insurance as a foundation. Going back to George, your point about thinking like the bank, we can become our own banks. We have to change our mindset. We have to change our shift our thinking to think, act, and move our money like the banks. Unless we do that, we will always be on the outside looking in of this economic merry-go-round.
Yeah. One of the old adages, and I think that I've heard, for years, is that, when you're young, you've got the time, but you don't have the money. When you're old, you have the money, but you don't have the time. So that's a balance that we have to attack. Like I said, youth, they do have money.
Yeah.
They just don't have the information and the knowledge because of our leadership and tutelage, as far as showing them how to start investing, $5, $10. And like I said, that's the beauty of some of these new brokerage houses. They allow you to buy fractional shares. So I know, I think it's clear, and we've talked about this for years, and is, like I said, it's building this wealth, building it so that it benefits you in the long run. It's not only working. So let's talk about, okay, you are working. Most companies offer 401ks. One of the
Mhm.
things that you want to look at is not just stashing that money in a 401k, but most of them offer now a Roth option. Knowing the difference in, basically, is the Roth option is, it's when you take the money out in your retirement years, that money is not taxable. So those are the kind of things that you want to start to look at, as you're building wealth, there, and we'll kind of circle back around to this, but one of the things that you want to shield yourself from is taxes. And we talked about this earlier, 64% taxes and interest. So there's three types of buckets that you want to examine in your savings. One is your tax deferred, which is your 401k, your IRAs, your tax free, which is your Roth, and sometimes life insurance, depending on what type of life insurance that you purchase. And then your taxable, which is your CDs, your savings, your credit union savings, and things like that. So those are three buckets that you want to look at and have a balance of what kind of funds that you're putting in there. So, for example, if you got a company match, say 10%, you want to take advantage of that, because I always say that's free money. But after that, you want to look at what percentage of that 10% you can put in a Roth, and what percent of that you just put in a straight 401. Because here again, the advantage of a 401k is it's prior to taxes. So if you wait, the real simple math, if you make $1,000, you put $100 in there. When you get your paycheck, you're only paying tax on $900. You
Right.
put it in a Roth, you put in $50. Well, that 900 is 950. So yeah, you're going to pay taxes on it in today's society. But the benefit here again is, in the long run, is you're not going to, when you take that money out when you're over 59 and a half, you're not going to have to pay any taxes on it. And that's a huge benefit for when you're retired, a huge benefit.
Man, George, that's so much information. That's some good information. Not that it's so much we can't handle it. It's so much that I hope people caught it. Okay, because that's not the type of information you're going to get from a tax preparer. Okay, like we talked about earlier. That's talking you're talking about accountants and tax advisors who's going to educate you and give you the type of foresight, insight, and information that you just shared with our audience this morning, or today, I should say. But I'm telling you, man, I almost want you to repeat it for the people in the back so they can hear it.
Right. I mean, and we take this so much for granted, when businesses roll this stuff out, they roll it out in a manner which you got to read to understand what you're doing. And, when I go back and look at prior to retirement, I wish I had to put more money in my Roth portion of my 401k, but I didn't. I put some, but I wish I had to put more, because when you retire, you have to look at which you want to withdraw first from. That's a thing that people don't really take in consideration. You've got different pots of money. You got a 401k, you got a Roth, you got a pension, you got other forms of, you got cash savings, so you got Social Security, so it's like, which pot do I take the money out of first? So that's where it goes back to your comment about understanding the difference between a tax preparer, which is like your H&R Block and some of the other, and I'm not picking on H&R Block, they serve a purpose, a tax consultant, an accountant, and a tax advisor. There's a difference. A tax advisor is someone that knows the law, but they also know how to do planning. That's the difference. A tax accountant knows the law, but they might not necessarily do the planning. They're more involved in the business side of it, if you have a business. So those are things that we have to look at. And you say, how do I get one? You interview them. You find them. You find them. They're all over the place. You have to Google it, just like anything else, which is something that we have access to. But you want to engage, interview, see that they meet your needs. Ask them those questions and get the answers that you want. But that's a part of the process. It's the planning process.
And let me add this because so many of us we use this as and it's a crutch. Don't be so concerned about how much they charge. It's not the cost always, it's the value of what you get out of what they charge. Because, as we ask around, and I've said, business is all about relationships. Okay. Once you've identified who your accountant or tax advisor person is, no different than your doctor or dentist or what have you. It's a relationship that's established at that point. So if you're asking a friend or a relative, hey, where do you get your teeth cleaned, or who's a good podiatrist, whatever, then because of their relationship with theirs or someone they know, they're going to refer you that way. All right. And so I think that one of the probably the surefire ways is to kind of go that route first, because it's your close nucleus of people who are not going to tell you wrong. I mean, if you ask me, hey, who do you go to get your teeth cleaned? Well, shucks, I'm right off the top of my head. I know that I'm going to, who I'm going to refer you to. So in that same way, because we're talking about our money now, so we need to be meticulous and calculating, if you will, on exactly where my dollar is going and how much it's going to bring back home. Think of your money as I don't hate it, yeah, I can use it as slaves that work for you, okay, or little workers or whatever. So when you send your money out, you got to have an expectation, not only how much you got getting back, but when, okay? And then in doing that, incorporating all the things that George has spelled out, I'm telling you, man, this is some major, major stuff we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Positioning ourselves to win in the American economy, even though the chips made the playing field has not been level. And let me say this real quick before I start rambling. It's important that we hold our politicians accountable, okay, both on the local level as well as the national scene, okay, because they need to be more open and hear the cries of Black Americans as it relates to business and economics, and break down some of these doggone barriers to starting a business. In a lot of cities, you got so much regulation and red tape and a lot of crap that entrepreneurs, they're full focus on doing either developing or manufacturing or providing a service or product, that with all these other regulations and barriers to entry, it almost makes it impossible for a Black person or African American or people of color to even begin a business because of all the disadvantages, George, that you talked about earlier. And so that crap has got to stop. We got to get a level playing field. And the only way we can get that done is putting more pressure on these people that suck us, that want to take our votes. They promise us the world and then deliver nothing. And we got to expect and demand more accountability out of them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not one of those that kind of believes in the level playing field. It's because here it again, it's information. I mean, if we don't have the information, it's never going to be a level playing field. We've got to have the information. I'm going to make another point. I was thinking about this as you were talking, and I was talking about your 401k, your Roth, and understanding these are vehicles. It's like a car, okay? But inside that car is the different funds that you invest in. And one of the big things right now is these target funds. These these brokerage agencies, they come out with these different things. So you may see it on your 401k as the Target Fund 2024 or Target Fund 2030. And basically what these are is they've now taken your age and they calculate based on when you would retire based on your age. So they put your money in funds, sub funds that are more aggressive or not aggressive based on your age, and that's what they call them a target fund. But what we found, in my opinion, is that these target funds sometimes charge you more in commission than your regular, like your ETFs or your index funds. So it's really important that you do your homework again to understand what the fees are associated with any type of fund that you invest in. Because even though it may sound like a small amount, over time it could be a large amount. So here again, you got to protect yourself, protect your money. Okay. and seeing what you're investing in. Just don't assume that because it's a target fund, it's the best thing for you. Look, and always ask the question. Anytime I've been interviewed a fiduciary, the first question is I ask is, or one of the questions I ask is, how do you get paid? Because I want to know, because I know you ain't doing this for free, and I need to understand what your commission structure is. And because I know that you got to get paid, but I want to make sure that it's not going to be in such a way that it's going to hurt my investments.
Yeah, when we talk about payment, it should be based upon. I know we can't do it based upon results because it's similar to how an attorney charges. They don't charge you based upon results of getting you free or not. Just charge you paying them based upon what they know. And so, with that in mind, you want to, while it is important to know whose interest, their best interest they are, and the best way to find out, like just what you said, but make sure that your investment vehicle is not fee heavy. Getting a fee for signing you up, getting a fee for your account assets under management, and getting a fee here and there. And to George's point, while that is critical to know. You also want to see what the results have been, though, because most of financial advisors, well, they can't disclose individual results of individual clients, but they can show that based upon the past 5 years, past 3 years, based upon certain things, that this is where they have helped their clients grow. And what I want to know more importantly is that, heck, I expect you to do well in the good times. So, that's not my biggest concern. What I wanted you to know, if you've been in business long enough to know your way to the bathroom or not, is what happened in 2008 with your portfolio. Did your portfolio tank as everybody else's did? And if not, why not? And if so, how much? Okay. What did your portfolio do in 2020? Okay. What were you telling your clients to do in 2020? Because I need to know during the bad times. If the down times, if I can handle that, the good times are going to take care of themselves. Okay. Because a rising ship lifts all boats. So whether you're in the stock market or whatever, if the stock's shooting up like now, everybody's applauding and everything because the market shot up, I think 750 basis points the other day, 600 points this morning. But they were crying like babes in the woods the day before yesterday when it plummeted. So if you can take that up and down volatility and still be sane, that's fine. But what you want to know is the history of that advisor. What have they done during the bad times?
Yeah, I
Because
mean, you want to know. Yeah, I mean, you want to know. For example, if you're using a typical stockbroker, they're gonna get paid, regardless of what you make money or not.
right.
A fiduciary normally does not get paid unless you make money. Okay, so and there are situations where they may recommend things that to invest in where they may not get paid at all. But those are the kind of things, the conversation you have to have with them. But switching the gears a little bit, since we're talking about retirement and taxes and things like that, I mean that's obviously close to my heart because of the fact that that's where we are right now, is in that retirement stage. And we talked about, it's not how much you make, it's but how much you get to keep. Okay, and in
Yeah.
retirement it's pretty interesting. So I'm going to use an example here. So if you and your wife are both retired, and here again, understanding the tax table, and you say with all your 401k, your pensions and things like that, your taxable income is say between $20,000 and $80,000. You've now fallen to 12% tax bracket, which,
Wow.
okay, 12%, that's not too bad. Okay, considering the lowest tax bracket is 10%, that's between zero and $20,000. Heaven forbid something happens to one of the partners. You die, your wife's a survivor. Okay, so she's still getting that same $80,000, or I'm sorry, between $20,000 and $80,000 a year. She now moves from the 12% tax bracket to the 22% tax bracket. So can you imagine what that's going to do for her income? I mean, her expenses haven't changed, but now the fact that you're not around, but it's not changed to the matter that you can now take another 10% away from her and give it to the government. So those are the kind of things that you have to look at. I'm going to look at another. I'm going to give you another example. Say, for example, you've gotten to a point in age where you no longer need your house. So you're going to move into some type of retirement or some type of apartment, and you're going to sell your house. with today's market, say your house is worth, say, $500,000. The difference between you selling that house as an individual and paying the capital gains tax and you creating a trust and putting that money in a trust once it's sold is a huge tax difference. So these are kind of things that you have to inform yourself of. Some of the things that you have to educate yourself on before you make these large transactions in retirement. I mean, we talk about leaving a legacy, but if you just pass away and you don't have the tax structure around your assets, having a will, having a trust, your kids are going to be, it's going to be see you later, because Uncle Sam's going to take a big chunk of that.
Amen. Amen. Well, Crumley, I tell you, man, this has been a plumb pleasing pleasure just sitting here chopping it up with you, bro. This is this information that we're sharing, and I'm sitting here taking notes as we're talking as well. Because you can tell, I like buildings and brick and mortar, but at the same token, have a balance. Again, going back to a statement I made earlier in terms of giving your money an assignment. So, and if you give that money an assignment, whether you like the 3 buckets that George talked about earlier, you got your tax deferred, you got your tax free bucket, and you got your did I say tax deferred? Yeah, your taxable
Tax deferred, taxable, and tax free.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And knowing which bucket to assign those dollars to are very, very important when it comes to reaping what you sow.
Yeah, and just adding to that, even in retirement, you want to use the 3 buckets, which is having your money in growth. You want to have safe, and you want to have liquid. Those are, even though you're in retirement, doesn't mean you don't want your money to grow. So there's still a portion that you want to allocate that. So I mean that's a rule of thumb that you can use from age 12 up to age 99 or 100. You want to have your money in 3 different buckets: growth, you want to have it in safe, and you want to have it in liquid. So those are kind of things that you have to look at when we talk about educating ourselves on what to do with our money, when to do with it. Because like I said, it's not what you make, it's what you get to keep, and that's so important, because, we can miss that by not educating ourselves on, the taxes. Yeah, we all gonna pay taxes, but we can minimize what we pay if we're educated and we seek the right advice and learning how to, shield some of our money from Uncle Sam. Because I mean, the tax code is like 2-3 telephone directories stapled together. I mean, the tax code is huge, and it's for a reason. But like I said, there are people out there that's what they make their living doing, is dissecting the tax code, understanding the tax code, and realizing how you can benefit, because there are a lot of people out there benefiting from the existing tax code because they read, learn, invest, and seek the right information.
Amen. Amen. Well, always remember that here on the Crotchety Old Men, want to make sure that you know where to contact us. On your favorite podcast show, whether it's be Spotify, iHeart, Apple, iTunes, Instagram. We're all over. It's Crotchety Old Men podcast.com. We have our website there. So feel free to send us an email if you got some comments or questions or what have you. But, and here's the last thing I'm going to say before we sign off today is this. The key, Key, to success is to keep educating yourself. It's out there. George said it earlier. It's the information. Look, y'all, we are in the information age. Okay. So there's advisors out there. There's social media, Google, LinkedIn, YouTube, you name it. There's some expert. There's somebody that's out there that's trying to share knowledge and information with you. And if you can't get it for them, Google is your friend. So, George, what else we got?
Hey, if you didn't know,
now you know.
Now you know. Peace.
Peace.
You have been listening to the Crotchety Old Men podcast, produced in conjunction with the Crotchety Old Men Podcast, LLC. The information contained in this podcast is provided for your listening enjoyment, as well as to provide information, education, opportunity, and exposure in the complicated world of finance. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform, including Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, or Spotify. For questions regarding this episode or any other episode, please contact us at info@thecrotchetyoldmenpodcast.com or visit our website at thecrotchetyoldmenpodcast.com.